I knew that a Pandora's box had been opened, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it under control.
It was just amazing how quickly he had to keep recalibrating. How bad could this get?
My greatest fear was that they wouldn't figure it out in time.
I absolutely thought I was going to die.
Next, two medical mysteries that defied the experts. Dan Hammond is an energetic father of triplets until a series of seemingly ordinary symptoms begin to take his body apart piece by piece.
It went from, I'm going to be out of work a couple of extra days to I might not come out of this.
Then, when Lauren Warren's Olympic dreams are jeopardized by crippling bouts of pain, she begins to worry that there may be more at stake than just her ability to compete.
There is something really seriously wrong on a very deep level, and whatever it is, they may never find it until it's too late.
When illness strikes, we look to doctors to give us answers. But what if they can't? For these unlucky patients, diagnosis is a mystery. Throughout 2002, Dan Hammond was working long hours as a public lawyer in the Boston Attorney General's office, and in his spare time, he spent every minute he had with his triplets.
When the kids were born, they kind of became our sport. They were healthy, happy kids, and we spent most of our time chasing them around.
Dan is a very involved dad. We were very busy, obviously, with the triplets. He was a very active guy.
Overall, Dan considers himself quite healthy. But in April of 2003, he becomes alarmed by a strange lump on his tailbone. Having never seen anything quite like it, he makes an appointment right away with his doctor.
It was the size of like a golf ball. So fairly imposing and very painful just because so many nerve endings come together down there.
After a thorough investigation, the doctor determines that Dan is suffering from a pilonidal cyst at the base of his spine.
They don't really understand where they come from or why certain people get them. They could be dealt with surgically, and that would resolve the situation.
The doctor assures Dan that the surgery is simple but necessary. If he doesn't have the cyst removed, it could get bigger and even more painful. But as Dan is being prepped for the procedure, he notices something very strange on his shin.
It was very painful. It felt like if you had taken a direct hit from a hockey puck or a baseball or something, except obviously that I hadn't. I had not had any kind of trauma there.
The surgeon immediately calls off the operation so that he can investigate this new finding. He wants to make sure it's not in any way related to the cyst on Dan's tailbone. The doctor then orders an X-ray, but it reveals nothing out of the ordinary. So Dan is cleared to proceed with the surgery. He's wheeled into the OR, and 2 hours later, when he wakes up, the doctor informs him that they successfully removed the cyst.
I felt fine. I felt like I sort of expected to feel.
Later that day, Dan is released from the hospital with strict orders to stay in bed for the next week. But instead of gradually feeling better, Dan begins to feel worse.
Shortly thereafter, I started to just generally feel lousy.
Dan is distressed that he's not recovering as quickly as he had hoped. In addition to feeling sick and fatigued, strangely, both of his legs are beginning to swell.
Mary was noticing that both of the legs looked like some kind of fluid was being retained there or something. They were both getting kind of puffy.
They were shiny and hot looking. And he complained a great deal about his legs.
He soon begins experiencing crippling pains in his legs. Eventually, it gets so bad, Dan can barely walk. Then, just 4 days after his surgery, he's plagued by something he's never experienced before: insomnia.
As you can imagine, having had 3 kids in the house for 6 years, anytime sleep presented itself, that was never an issue. And really, for the first time in my life, I would just lie for hours staring at the ceiling, unable to get to sleep.
He was very tired for the days following the surgery, which seemed quite normal, but then sleepless after that.
I remember specifically one night at 1 o'clock, I still hadn't slept at all. So rather than torture everybody else, I just got up and went downstairs to the couch and brought a 400-page Andrew Jackson biography with me, figuring that this should take care of it. And when the sun came up at 5:45, I had finished the biography, still lying on the couch, and I had not slept at all. And that's when I began to realize this is more than garden variety insomnia. Something's going on here.
Mary insists that Dan make a follow-up appointment with the surgeon to find out what's going on. And just 1 week after his operation, the Hammonds meet again with the doctor.
She gave some thought to it, but she really kind of not dismissed it, but thought of it as kind of post-surgical anxiety. And I think she genuinely thought it would improve.
The doctor prescribes a medication to alleviate the pain in his legs and reassures Dan that things will improve. He just needs to give his body time to heal from the surgery. But that night during dinner, when he least expects it, Dan experiences a shocking new symptom.
I had literally about 3 bites of dinner.
And he spontaneously threw up with no warning.
Unfortunately, it happened in front of the kids because it was right at the dinner table. So now the kids are, for the first time, kind of genuinely concerned that something's wrong with Dad, as was I, frankly.
And just when he thinks it can't get any worse, Dan wakes up the next morning in the most excruciating pain he's ever felt.
The swelling and pain in the legs accelerated dramatically. By Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, one of them was probably swollen to twice its normal size, and the other one not much smaller, all from the knee down. They were bloated, a little bit discolored.
Mary is alarmed by how quickly Dan's health is deteriorating, and when she checks in on him, she's taken aback by a completely new development.
I got up Wednesday morning, and there was about a 3-inch swath of bright purple across the right side of my neck.
And it didn't look like a scratch. It wasn't red, it was pink. And I even asked the kids, you didn't accidentally write on Dad with markers. It was unlike any color I'd seen on skin before.
We could tell something bad was happening, and it was accelerating whatever it was. So that's when Mary brought me to the hospital.
When they arrive, the family doctor is waiting for them, and Dan is so weak, he has to be wheeled into the ER.
He admitted me right away. He said any one of these things independently is enough to merit being treated inpatient.
Right away, the doctor zeroes in on Dan's severely swollen legs. His gut tells him that Dan might have a potentially lethal blood clot. If it breaks loose, it could travel through his bloodstream and block blood vessels in his lungs. This condition, known as a pulmonary embolism, could kill Dan in a matter of minutes.
I think they were focused on finding a clot and removing it. I think that was the first and strongest theory as to what was going on here.
He received every diagnostic you could imagine. X-rays, MRIs, CAT scans. You name a diagnostic, he had it.
A few hours later, they still don't have any confirmation on the potential blood clot diagnosis, when Dan develops an extremely high fever.
I was still presenting new symptoms daily. None of the old ones were really going away, even if they were getting better.
This new development turns the investigation on its head. A fever is almost always associated with an infection of some sort in the body, not with blood clots. Immediately, the medical team shifts gears, working to treat the fever while simultaneously trying to identify what could be causing his temperature to spike to 102 degrees.
They intravenously started giving me a number of antibiotics that kill whole families of bacteria, on the theory that even if we can't identify it, some one of these antibiotics should kill it.
But hours later, Dan's fever isn't responding to the antibiotics. In fact, his temperature has skyrocketed to 103 degrees. If it stays this high for a prolonged period, Dan could suffer from permanent brain damage, or in the worst-case scenario, he could die. The medical team agrees that Dan has to be moved to the critical care unit immediately and administered an even stronger antibiotic through an IV drip.
Well, nothing good happened. The fever continued to stay up at around 101, 102, 103 level, which really perplexed the doctors because one of the most fundamental rules they live by is antibiotics kill bacteria and drive fevers down. That wasn't happening.
It's dawning on me the severity of what we're seeing.
Mary is beside herself. 48 hours after Dan was admitted to the hospital, the doctors are no closer to figuring out what's causing his body to go haywire. And Mary is beginning to realize just how serious the situation is.
My greatest fear was that they wouldn't figure it out in time.
And I do remember at one point, one of my doctors there said sort of matter-of-factly that I was the sickest person in the hospital at that point.
For the past 48 hours, Dan Hammond has been floating in and out of consciousness, and doctors have no idea why. He's suffering from an extremely dangerous fever and excruciating leg pain. The medical team is struggling to understand how the seemingly unrelated symptoms could be linked, and they appear to be at a dead end.
And it didn't, obviously, sit well. So the next morning, I went in and I said, I think we should move him.
Mary was a fierce advocate through all of this, and I think she was way ahead of me in realizing that this doesn't add up to anything and we're in the wrong place.
Mary convinces the family doctor who is managing his case to release Dan to another hospital that can provide more specialized care.
And the next morning, as soon as I got there early in the morning, the paperwork was underway and he had made plans to move him.
They rush him to Massachusetts General, but on the way to the new hospital, a terrifying new symptom emerges.
For the first time ever, I started to notice some vision problems and started seeing shadow images, things that aren't really there. Something strange going on with my right eye.
I think he was so frustrated, and to add another symptom, it was an incredulous feeling like, what is going on?
Within a couple hours of having first noticed it, by late morning, vision of my right eye was very blurry. If I closed my left eye, I could only make out indistinct shapes in the room in my right eye. So just in the 2 hours since I'd first noticed it, it had degenerated badly.
Dan is now terrified that he may be going blind. But the new doctors are more concerned about Dan's fever. It's imperative that they identify the infection that is wreaking havoc on his body, and fast.
I was seeing rheumatologists, I was seeing infectious disease specialists, hematologists, and GI people.
And he's examined, but it's 5 o'clock at night. It's too bad. You know, you have this sinking feeling like, I think he's in the right place now, but I sure wish it was 9 a.m.
As the day is ending and the Hammonds' lives are spiraling out of control, another doctor enters Dan's room, an internist who begins to perform yet another thorough exam.
He then proceeded through the whole checklist of all the different symptoms, and then he got to the eyes, which were kind of tacked on at the end because it was something that had just come up that day. So he said, okay, well, close your left eye and tell me what you see. And I closed my left eye, and I couldn't see anything.
One eye began getting blurry at about 8 a.m. on Thursday, and he was completely without sight 24 hours later.
The internist quickly excuses himself and begins trying to track down an ophthalmologist who is available at 10 o'clock at night.
I think internists are stoics by nature, but it's clear that he thinks this is highly significant, and the eyes kind of rocket up to the top of the list of symptom sets to be dealt with.
In less than an hour, an ophthalmologist arrives and immediately begins conducting an intense round of eye exams.
And I'd never so much as had glasses. So it strikes me as strange that, you know, with all these specialists, it's the eye doctors of all people who seem to be kind of driving the bus here.
You could tell by her body language that she was alarmed by what she saw or didn't see.
For the first time, Mary and Dan are hopeful that someone may be able to piece together his mysterious symptoms. Because of his rapidly deteriorating eye condition, Dan is put under the care of immunologist and ophthalmologist, Dr. Stephen Foster.
Mr. Hammond's right eye was blind and unable to see anything other than the presence of a light. Hemorrhage was present in the retina. The right eye had had much more devastating involvement up to that point than the left eye, but the left eye was fast on its way to catching up. This is clearly an ophthalmological emergency.
36 hours ago, it was 20/20, and now it's gone. But even more concerningly, the left eye is testing at about 2200, which I think basically fits the definition of legally blind.
Inflammation in the eye is extremely unforgiving. Once damage occurs to optic nerve or retina, it's finished.
There is nothing Dr. Foster can do to save Dan's right eye, but he believes that he has time to salvage the left one. Dan is completely stunned by the tragic turn of events.
At the time, I had 3 6-year-old children who were just in kindergarten at that point, and the thought had never entered my mind that I might not see them grow up.
He was almost prostrate, profound fevers, and then, of course, going blind. So I can't speak for him, but my guess is that at one point he probably thought his number was up.
It was just amazing how quickly he had to keep recalibrating. How bad could this get? And over an amazingly short period of time, it went from I'm going to be out of work a couple of extra days too. I might not come out of this.
Less than 24 hours after arriving at Massachusetts General Hospital, Dan Hammond has gone blind in his right eye, and it seems as though he's rapidly losing sight in his other eye.
And now this was just a revelation to me that, wow, I've lost my right eye and now my left eye's going the same way. I'm going blind.
But when ophthalmologist Dr. Stephen Foster arrives on the scene, he's more concerned about finding out what's causing Dan's temperature to spike at 103 degrees.
First and foremost on everyone's minds was infection. And we felt that since that can be fairly rapidly lethal, it's mandatory to exclude that.
Dr. Foster orders a full battery of emergency tests, hoping to find the source of Dan's bizarre symptoms. 2 hours later, the results are in.
All the cultures that were done for the highly dreaded infectious potential causes were negative. So, in fact, this was not infectious.
Suddenly, Dr. Foster is back to square one. If it's not an infection coursing through Dan's body, he speculates that the root of the problem may lie in his blood vessels. He immediately performs a vitrectomy, a process in which an entire layer of the damaged eye is removed to see if the arteries feeding it have become inflamed.
It was obvious that there was inflammation of the blood vessels in the retina.
But Dr. Foster suspects that the inflammation is not just limited to Dan's eyes. He fears that the blood vessels throughout his entire body could be inflamed as well. If this is in fact the case, Dan may have only hours to live. Dr. Foster wastes no time. Right away, he preps Dan for an angiogram, a specialized X-ray to view the inside of his blood vessels.
Angiograms were done of his major vasculature arterial tree by catheterizing lower portion of the aorta.
24 hours later, when the results come in, Dr. Foster is finally able to pinpoint exactly what's been causing Dan's body to fall apart.
And specifically, it was clear that the primary tree, so to speak, of the vascular system that was predominantly targeted was the arterial tree.
Dr. Foster calls Mary into Dan's room to give them the answer they have all been desperately waiting for.
This was an autoimmune polyarteritis nodosa.
Polyarteritis nodosa, or PAN, is a rare and particularly lethal autoimmune disease. For an unknown reason, rogue immune cells randomly attack and inflame the arteries, veins, and capillaries that carry blood to and from the heart. When these blood vessels become inflamed, blood flow slows down, cutting off the supply of oxygen to the surrounding tissues. Ultimately, any organ associated with those vessels shuts down entirely.
And what that is, a kind of vasculitis where it's the arteries or your vascular system that your immune system starts recognizing as an invader and starts attacking. So in my case, it was the arteries to all various systems of the body that the immune system started trying to take down.
So it seemed clear that this patient had an arteritis affecting other organ systems, skin, bowel, and otherwise.
Dan is a classic example of how polyarteritis nodosa can overwhelm the body. The inflamed arteries caused the rash on Dan's neck, the swelling and discoloration in his legs, and his high fever. Finally, the disease spread to blood vessels in his eyes. It's clear that Dan's body is surrendering to the disease at a breakneck speed, and Dr. Foster has no time to lose.
Polyarteritis nodosa has about an 85% death rate if the patient is not aggressively treated. This was a life and death matter. The medical team at the Mass General swung into action very rapidly with high-dose intravenous corticosteroid therapy.
The corticosteroids should reduce the inflammation throughout Dan's vascular system and stop the immune system from attacking any more blood vessels.
It just shuts the whole immune system down and, renders you almost completely immune suppressed very quickly.
Now the only thing they can do is wait and hope that the treatment will help save Dan's left eye and his life.
Within 24 hours after starting the prednisone, there was no further decline in the vision. So that was a huge relief. Because at that point I'm thinking, I may not be able to read, but I can still make out my kids' faces.
Over the next 3 days, Dr. Foster closely monitors Dan and it seems as though the steroid treatments are truly working.
The legs stopped hurting for the first time since before the surgery. The fever went down. The rashes and the other dermatological problems, they receded pretty quickly after that.
It felt right. Okay, now we've got the answer. Good.
I think everybody breathed a big sigh of relief after 2, 3, 4 days that in fact he was not going to be at death's door.
Finally, after days of being in the hospital, Dan is discharged from the critical care unit. And while he's thankful to be alive, Dan must now deal with the realization that he'll never see the world in the same way again.
Well, the right eye, unfortunately, was irrevocably damaged from the arteritis, infarction of the retina, and he will never see again with that right eye.
Dan is told there's a very slim chance that, over time, he may regain some sight in his left eye, but Dr. Foster is skeptical.
Well, you never know exactly what to expect. The hope was that it could be resurrected.
But 3.5 months after he is discharged from the hospital, Dan experiences something completely unexpected.
You know, I sort of come to grips with the idea that it's just not going to get much better. And I remember somebody left the newspaper and I was bored, so I scooped it up and started reading, and was reading a movie review, and I remember it was about 3 or 4 paragraphs in when I actually brought myself up short and said, what am I doing? For the first time since it had all happened, I found I was actually able to read something.
Today, 5 years after he was diagnosed, Dan can see quite clearly with his left eye.
The left eye is now 20/25, which is outstanding. I mean, that's just one line less than 20/20. He can see and do everything he might possibly want to see and do with that one 20/25 left eye.
PAN rarely shows up in the eyes, or at least rarely goes after the eyes early in the game. It usually goes after other more fundamental systems first. So kind of the ultimate good news, bad news scenario, PAN really should not have cost me my vision, but it should have killed me.
Dan still marvels at how close he was to death and wonders why no other doctor was able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Polyarteritis itself is so uncommon and so commonly not recognized and diagnosed definitively and treated aggressively early enough to save the patient's life, so that the diagnosis is commonly made at autopsy.
There was a real possibility he wouldn't be here, and I always remember how lucky we are.
I consider Dan cured. He's never had another problem since, and I don't think he ever will.
To get this twice would be like getting hit by lightning twice.
Today, Dan and Mary are back to their normal, hectic lives, juggling work and making more time than ever to spend with their 3 10-year-old children.
Something like this makes you step back, makes you appreciate that you have 3 beautiful kids and you do get to watch them grow up.
While Dan Hammond's body was almost completely destroyed in a matter of days, Lauren Warren spent more than 3 decades suffering and almost just as long trying to convince her family and doctors that anything was wrong at all. 1979 was a memorable year for 12-year-old Lauren Warren. She was a star athlete at her middle school in upstate New York, winning more than 10 races that year.
I was an incredibly active young child, incredibly healthy, incredibly strong, and I was very athletically gifted.
Despite having a few aches that her mother attributes to growing pains, Lauren is feeling as good as she ever has. But nothing could prepare her for what happens when she comes home from school one day that winter.
Out of the blue, I got hit with tremendous pain that just went from tops of my thighs straight on up to my neck. And it literally dropped me to the couch.
Alone in the house, she lies completely helpless on the couch, trying to cope with the excruciating abdominal pain. Then, suddenly, her heart feels like it's going to explode.
It was a fast-paced, but really heavy beating, and that at any moment it is going to just give one final beat, burst open, and expire.
Terrified by what might happen next, she begins to panic. But just when she thinks she can't take it anymore, her mother comes home. As soon as she lays eyes on Lauren, she knows that her only daughter needs help right away. Within seconds, the two are in the car, driving as fast as they can to the emergency room.
It felt like, oh my gosh, you know, somebody just put me out of my misery. I absolutely thought I was going to die.
"12-year-old Lauren Warren has just been raced to the local hospital. She's struggling to breathe and is experiencing agonizing abdominal pains like she's never felt before. Minutes after arriving at the emergency room, the medical team begins giving her a head-to-toe examination and ordering a series of x-rays. But when the results come in, it's clear that there's nothing wrong with Lauren's abdomen.
And the doctors are coming in once in a while to kind of check your abdomen, and does it hurt here, does it hurt there? Well, it hurts everywhere. And they just didn't know what to do with me.
The ER doctor assures them that Lauren's symptoms are classic signs of a food allergy. They discharge her with orders to eliminate fish, nuts, and milk from her diet. But the attacks keep coming. Eventually, her mother takes her back to the doctors for another full workup. But after a second series of tests, they remain stumped.
We don't know what it is. It's some kind of irritable bowel thing. And that's what we all believed for a long, long time.
Throughout middle school, the excruciating attacks become a regular part of Lauren's life. She's learning how to live with the pain and rarely mentions it to anyone.
I know that's a strange thing to say, but you get used to it. You don't let people know that you're hurting that bad.
By the time she's in high school, Lauren is struggling to hide the relentless attacks from her track coach. But when she starts experiencing them almost 3 weeks out of each month, she can't cover them up any longer.
I was a very, very good athlete, but there were days that I just could not bring myself to even move my body because it was in so much pain that there was a heightened sense of sensitivity to everything.
Humiliated that she can't keep up with the team, she slowly begins to isolate herself from her friends and family. And when a peculiar new symptom begins to emerge, she doesn't tell anyone about it.
The urine was reddish, brickish brown during the attack, and it would have a pancake, thick batter in it. It was very strange looking.
This bizarre symptom, coupled with the debilitating abdominal pains and wild heart rate, have become a daily part of Lauren's life by the time she graduates from high school. And for the next 5 years, her condition only seems to intensify.
I felt like I was becoming an outcast from it, so I started to pull away from a lot of my friends because I never knew when it was going to hit.
Despite the crippling attacks, Lauren manages to land a job at a vet's office, secretly hoping that no one there will catch on to her condition.
I have a veterinary phone consult practice, and she was managing it. So we worked together closely at the clinic.
It doesn't take long for Michelle to notice that Lauren is suffering from something.
I would just look over and I could see her kind of doubled over, putting pressure on her abdomen and just trying to work through it.
When Michelle confronts her, Lauren breaks down and confides in her about the incessant attacks that she's been experiencing for more than 10 years.
Michelle is a saint. She's an amazing, amazing person.
Michelle promises to help Lauren find out what's going on. And as time goes on, the two develop a romantic relationship.
Lauren was just coming out, so she was just finding herself, which was all the more difficult with her illness.
Michelle soon begins lining up appointment after appointment for Lauren with specialists.
We were grasping at straws. We tried a cardiologist, we tried our GP, we tried the liver specialist and the GI specialist, and we tried the gynecologist.
But it was becoming very disheartening every time to go through this and for them to find nothing wrong, and yet here I am still struggling.
But despite the constant setbacks, Lauren is slowly realizing that the only way to beat this thing is to tackle it head on. She starts by putting her running shoes back on and somehow musters the strength to run through the pain.
If she was feeling off, if she was feeling tired, if she was feeling an attack come on, sometimes going for a run would help.
During one of her early runs, Lauren notices that the combination of running and consuming large amounts of sports drinks makes her feel better. So she begins a steady diet of sports drinks and energy bars to help manage the painful attacks.
And son of a gun, I'm noticing I'm feeling better. I'm not having the episodes as frequently as I had. That was the first bit of light that came into my life with this situation, ever.
For the first time in over 20 years, Lauren is living a somewhat normal life. Then, in the summer of 2000, Lauren decides to re-enter the world of competitive running.
She won or placed second in every race she entered, whether the race had thousands of competitors or some of the local races with just a few dozen.
And so I'm on top of the world that way, and feeling like finally I'm able to be the athlete that I know I can be. And I started looking at, I think I can go pro. And Olympics was always in my mind.
Hoping to qualify for the Olympic track team in 2004, Lauren begins racing full-time. She's running some of the best times of her life and is soon competing in triathlons. But then, after completing the swimming leg in one competition, Lauren is surprised when she notices that her foot is bleeding.
And when she finished at the end, she looked down, her whole foot was bloody.
I go, I wonder what that is, and take the shoe off, go to the medical tent, got a pretty good gash in it.
After examining Lauren's foot, the nurse recommends that she get a tetanus shot, just in case the wound is infected.
I did let them give me a tetanus shot, and 24 hours after that, that was it.
After that vaccine, she was terrible. She had terrible pain for weeks.
Night sweats, fevers, attacks were coming left and right. I knew that a Pandora's box had really been opened, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it under control.
Without warning, Lauren's life is sent into a tailspin, and the attacks return with a vengeance.
It's like you're standing there, and she's laying in bed, and it's like your spouse is on fire, and you can't do anything. You just have to stand and watch the burn.
For more than 20 years, Lauren Warren has endured gut-wrenching abdominal pains and an out-of-control heartbeat, and no doctor has been able to figure out what has been causing the bizarre episodes. Surprisingly, when she starts running, the debilitating symptoms all but disappear, until she cuts her foot. And now a seemingly benign tetanus shot seems to have triggered a series of agonizing attacks like she's never experienced before.
There is something really seriously wrong on a very deep level, and whatever it is, they may never find it until it's too late.
Lauren is beginning to feel like she's lost control of her body completely. Then, when she doesn't think it can get any worse, an alarming new symptom surfaces.
Oftentimes when Lauren is falling asleep, she'll have twitches in rapid succession all around her body. And it'll be like a lightning storm going off, where you see a bolt here and a bolt there and a flash there.
I can have 5 different areas firing all at once. I'd have severe night sweats with it. Like somebody literally poured a few buckets of water over me.
It's an extremely difficult time for Lauren, but she's doing the best she can to try to lead a normal life. And one afternoon, when a couple of friends invite them out to the movies, Lauren finds the strength to go. It'll be an evening she'll never forget.
As the movie's playing, I'm slowly losing it. And I knew this is bad. This is really bad. And I'm just kind of sinking down in the chair, and I thought I was gonna pass out. And I turned to her, and in my haze, I'm saying to her, when this is over, please take me to the hospital. And she just jumped up.
And I said, no. I said, we gotta go now.
Terrified by how bad Lauren looks, Michelle races her to the emergency room.
And I'm in every position possible, trying to get relief. I can barely breathe and feeling awful.
This time, doctors take one look at Lauren and know that something is very wrong. They perform a CAT scan and run a series of blood tests. But when none of the tests reveals anything abnormal, the doctor is completely stumped. Still, he recognizes that Lauren is suffering from something.
Whatever it is, he says it's serious. He said, you need to see a specialist. You need to see somebody.
Michelle vows then and there to find somebody who can tell them what's destroying Lauren's life. She begins an exhaustive search for a specialist and keeps coming across one doctor's name, endocrinologist Dr. Merville Marshall. Nearly 30 years after all these symptoms started, Michelle and Lauren travel 70 miles to White Plains, New York, to meet the one doctor they hope can give them the answer they're looking for.
Practicing medicine is often like playing detective. You search for clues and you look for the culprit, the guilty party. And if you can't find the guilty party, then you go back to the scene of the crime.
He basically said to me, "So tell me what happened." He was great. He says, "I want to hear from you."
Lauren did not fill out a little piece of paper with boxes that she checked off. He sat in front of her at his desk with a blank piece of paper and said, "I'm listening."
So when Lauren came to me, the first thing that I noticed is she was real. She was truly suffering some very acute abdominal pains. What can cause such severe pain? She had undergone endoscopy, colonoscopy, so she had repeated episodes and negative tests. So this was still a mystery. Another symptom was the muscle twitching. So we have abnormal movements and abnormal sensations. So there's a neurological component.
Then Lauren tells Dr. Marshall about how the episodes are accompanied by a terrifying, irregular heartbeat.
In Lauren's case, it was a fast beat. And there's a lot of things that can cause a fast heart rate.
Next, Dr. Marshall wants to know how she's been managing her symptoms, and Lauren has come prepared to show him.
And I brought this huge bag. In the bag, I had my sports drinks and all the other sports bars that are high carbohydrate and sugars and things that help me that way.
He picked up every one of those darn canisters and spun them around and looked what was on the label, and he's making notes. Every one of them. And he said, "Let me interrupt you for a moment." He got up and he went to the whole wall of reference books. And he pulled off a book and he opened it up.
I don't hesitate to admit what I don't know, what I need to look up. And if I find the answer, any day in which I know something that I did not know the day before is a good day for me.
He asked me about the family as far as my background, which I was surprised at. Nobody had ever done that. My mother's mother died at, I believe, 37, respiratory paralysis. And then my uncle, who was 36, had a bad attack going on, same symptoms, and actually had a heart attack, all the same symptoms.
When he hears that other family members have had similar episodes of pain, Marshall grabs yet another book from his shelf.
So now I have an hereditary disease that causes abdominal pain, neurological symptoms, and that gets better with sports drinks, carbohydrate, or electrolytes. So I asked the question that nailed it for me.
He said to me, "Does your urine ever look funny? Does it ever change color when this is going on?" And that was amazing.
And that was it. The two of us sat there with like a little buzz, like, ooh, he could be onto something.
Well, that was it for me, and I knew what test I had to draw to confirm the diagnosis.
For the past 3 decades, Lauren Warren has been consumed with managing an extremely bizarre series of incapacitating symptoms. Severe abdominal pains, a heartbeat that races out of control, strange colored urine, and muscular twitching that keeps her up at night. Now, Dr. Merville Marshall thinks he's figured out just what's causing these harrowing symptoms. But first, he needs to run a highly specialized blood test to confirm his hunch.
In between the meetings with Dr. Marshall, I was extremely helpful. I did a lot of praying.
After what seems like an eternity, the findings finally come in, and Dr. Marshall has all the pieces of the puzzle he needs to close the investigation.
With the positive test result and the family history and the typical symptomatology, it was clear that she did indeed have porphyria.
Porphyria is the term used for a group of genetic conditions which cause a problem with the body's production of heme, a critical chemical in the blood that carries oxygen through the body. In healthy individuals, the body produces other chemicals called precursors, which blend together to make the heme. But in patients like Lauren, these precursors are produced in excess and become extremely toxic, causing the nervous system to malfunction. This can result in severe episodes of pain throughout the body.
All of her symptoms are due to the accumulation of the backed up chemicals. The pain of the attacks of porphyria is described as acute and extremely severe. Typically, it feels like knives, burning knives being put through the abdomen. The pain of porphyria is thought to be from the nervous system. It's due to a firing of nervous tissues.
Dr. Marshall explains to Lauren and Michelle that it was the classic signs of the disease that gave him the critical clues he needed.
Tachycardia, or a fast heartbeat, or a faster than normal heartbeat, is one of the symptoms of an attack of porphyria. And in women in particular, the normal changes in female hormones at the time of the menstrual cycle is a well-known stimulus for an attack. So Lauren had her first attack at the time of her puberty and had subsequent attacks, often in association with a menstrual period. The information that really nailed it for me was the fact that her family members had similar episodes. There are very few hereditary diseases that can do those things.
But it was Lauren's strange-colored urine that sealed the diagnosis.
Porphyria, the name comes from the Greek for purple, because the urine often turns purple. And that happens because of the accumulation of these porphyrins, or precursor molecules, in both the blood and the urine.
There is no way to correct the malfunctioning precursors, but Dr. Marshall promises Lauren that she can control the painful symptoms and begin to lead a normal life.
The genetic defect is there forever. There is no cure for porphyria. The attacks can be controlled.
To help ward off future attacks, Dr. Marshall puts Lauren on a strict diet, heavy in carbohydrates, encouraging her to eat more rice, whole grains, and starchy vegetables.
There is a need to make heme on a regular basis, and there are certain stimuli that will increase the production of heme and consequently cause an attack. For reasons that are not clear, glucose and other carbohydrates will inhibit the production of heme and slow down the production of heme.
But then Lauren can't help but wonder why her body suddenly stopped responding to the sports drinks 2 years earlier. Dr. Marshall speculates that the tetanus shot Lauren received when she cut her foot during a race may have triggered a massive overproduction of heme, causing her nervous system to begin shutting down altogether.
There are a number of medications that are known to stimulate the production of heme and cause an overaccumulation of the precursors and be a stimulus for an attack of porphyria.
Looking back, Lauren is astounded that more than 20 doctors over the course of nearly 30 years were unable to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Porphyria is often missed. The symptoms often simulate another disease, an acute abdominal emergency such as appendicitis.
What is clear is that had Lauren continued to go undiagnosed, her problems could have become much worse.
She may have become addicted to pain medication because the only other therapy is symptomatic therapy. Some attacks are associated with muscle paralysis, so she may become paralyzed.
And that was it. I mean, went home that night and, of course, find the American Porphyria Foundation site and read other people's stories that were exactly like mine and, you know, sobbing and crying because, oh my gosh, there's an answer.
Today, Lauren is 42 and more active than she's ever been. She's currently training for the Ironman competition and is hoping to beat her best time yet.
And certainly the quality of my life, there are no words to express the quality that I have now.
There's perhaps nothing as gratifying as making a diagnosis that's been missed in a patient and having the patient benefit from that diagnosis.